All right, so this is graphing lines in standard form. So we already learned about graphing in slope-intercept form. Now we're going to deal with standard form. So standard form is just a different way of saying the same thing. We have the same variables, x and y, but now we have a, b, and c. And this is no longer our slope. That's why it's a different variable. It's not m because it's not our slope. Even though it's in front of x, like in the slope-intercept form, it is not our slope. So you have to remember that this number does not tell you how to move when it's in this form. It only does that in slope-intercept form. Okay, so we have a, b, and c, and these can be any numbers, just like in our example right here where we have 3x plus 2y equals 6. Okay, so I'm just going to graph this, and what's nice about standard form is that it makes it real easy to find our intercepts, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So step one says find the y-intercept, and what I mean by that is we're going to let x equal 0. So again, if I let x equal 0, basically I'm finding the coordinate 0 something, and I need to find out what y equals. Okay, so basically I'm going to solve this equation for y when x equals 0. Well, if x equals 0, I have 3 times 0. So really what I can do is I can just look at that equation and cover up that little piece right there. And then just look, I have 2y equals 6. Well, that's easy enough to solve. All I have to do is divide by 2, right? What's 6 divided by 2? Well, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I found my first coordinate. And my first coordinate is my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is 0, 3. So I can go ahead and plot that point. And then second step is find the x-intercept. And again, the x-intercept is just like the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. The x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis, right? So I know my point should lie on this line right here. And again, when I do that, all I'm doing is I'm letting y equal 0. So again, I'm going to be finding a different coordinate, but in this time, my y equals 0. So what can I do with my equation? Well, just like I did before, if y equals 0, that means this piece is no longer there. So really I have 3x equals 6. And that's pretty simple. All I have to do is divide by 3. So if I divide by 3, I get x equals 2. So I have my 2 coordinates. Here's my second one. All I have to do is plot it. 2, 0. Well, I know that that's here. Here's where x equals positive 2 and y equals 0. I have my 2 points. I can do my third step, which is simply connect the dots, which basically means I'm drawing my line. And we are done. So as you can see, standard form is really helpful because you can find 2 points pretty quickly as long as these are real simple numbers. If you get fractions, it gets a little iffy, but let's look at some more examples, okay? So we now know how to graph in y-intercept, slope-intercept, as well as standard form. So example 2 is basically I need to look at this because it's not in either form, and I need to look at it and say, what would be easiest to do? Well, looking at it, I think it's easiest to put it in standard form because all I'd have to do is move this term right here, this y value over there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to do some manipulation when I do these. And these are not like terms, so I cannot add them together. So I end up with 1. Let's put it in standard form. Standard form, the x comes first, right? Then our y. And that's going to equal -1. Okay, now that it's in standard form, I should be able to do it real quick in 3 steps, right? Let's make x equal 0. Well, if x equals 0, I have 1/2 y equals -1. In order to get y by itself, I multiply by 2, right? Because 2 halves equals 1. So if I multiply by 2, -1 times 2 is -2. So my y-intercept is -2. Because that is the coordinate, my first coordinate, which is x equals 0, y equals -2. Now I want the other coordinate, my x-intercept. This is my y-intercept, and this is going to be my x-intercept. So if y equals 0, cover that up. 4x equals -4. Well, I would divide x by 4, I get -1/4. So this one's not so good because if this is -1, I'm basically somewhere around here. You can see that my line's going to be very, very hard to read, but as long as you know and you show me that you know these values, I'm going to be very lenient with what your line looks like, because it's even hard for me to draw a line that steep, okay? As long as you have your points, you show me what those points are, we're fine. Okay, so example 3, let's look at this. Well, slope-intercept form is where we're solved for y, right? And we are so close to being solved for y here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And again, I'm going to say this again. Whenever we divide something by 2, we have to divide everything on the other side by 2. So I not only have to divide this term by 2, but I have to divide this term by 2. We're lucky because they're both 6's, just one's negative, so I get negative 3x and I get positive 3. This is real simple to graph, right? All I have to do is look at my y-intercept, which is this number by itself because it's in y or slope-intercept form. The last number is where I begin, that's positive 3. And I'm going to plot them on the same graph, positive 3, and I move negative 3. But remember, move we said is rise over run, right? Do I have a fraction here? No, I have a whole number, but I can easily make a whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. So now I have a rise of negative 3 and a run of 1. So rise negative 3 from my point, that's actually going down 3, and I'm going to move over 1. And again, you can always check your work, because I know that if I have a negative number as my slope, my line should be going down, right? Is my slope negative? Yes, my slope is negative, okay? Because remember, the number in front of x, when it's in this form, is my slope. And my slope is negative, my line should be going down, okay? Example number 4. If I look at this, I see again it's easy to solve for y, so I'm going to do that. In one step I can solve for y. All I have to do is divide by 10. If I divide by 10, I get y equals negative 3. We talked about this in the last video. Whenever you have y equals some number, all you have to do is find that number. Negative 1, 2, 3. My graphs are getting kind of sloppy here. But y always equals that number. Does not matter what x equals. X can equal whatever it wants. Y is always equal to 3, which means I have a horizontal line. Okay, so there's my horizontal line. Example 5, I have x divided by 3 equals 2. Well, now there's only one variable to solve for, which means I'm going to multiply by 3. When I multiply by 3, I get x equals 6. Here's my other special case, x equals 6. That's another special kind of line. Instead of it being horizontal, it is a vertical line. So I find where x equals 6, and I draw a vertical line. Okay, so you can see just by learning the standard form and the slope-intercept form, real quickly we can graph just about any equation that we get, as long as we see which one it's easiest to put into and work our way from there. So when you get really good at this, the graphing goes super fast. I'm not going to ask you to make a table or plot a whole bunch of points. As long as you have 2 points, that's all I care about. Okay? This has been Graphing in Standard Form.